from last week's video, Geisha and the Tiger, the Smithsonian and contemporary magazines, but I'm going to harken back to my maps. I still have remnants left from this World Atlas, which has been a great friend to me, and as you can see, this is how I treat my friends. I cut up their pages. So what I have in mind is this model. Beautiful image from a GQ magazine that was taken actually during the pandemic. It's an interesting little backstory that I read. The photographer is an experimental photographer, and they took the picture of the model from the model's home in London. The photographer was at their home somewhere else in the world, but it was during the pandemic when everything was shut down and we couldn't work together, and artists especially, it was so painful, we couldn't network. So I want to use this image. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I want to use my maps, and I think I want this as my background. I'm going to go into that direction, and I am going to start cutting. This was one of my favorite techniques when I first started doing a lot of collage. Taking out the features that I want to use, saving this template so I can place them back exactly where they belong, and cutting out the space so I can fill it in with my chosen ephemera. Working with this very old World Atlas, just basically using it up. I'm ready to maybe part ways with it, and I'm thinking about color is very important. Contrast is going to be very important. I have this background that I think I'm going to be using for the piece. We have a lot of purples, pinks, and reds going on, so I may want to consider staying away from those colors and creating a contrast, maybe veering towards reds and oranges, yellows. And I got a lot of options still left in this map. Now, actually, I'm looking at this. We have, it's a map of a Canadian, it's Quebec, the southern part of Quebec. And there are purple borders, which are really, that's actually really pretty. I kind of like this, so maybe I won't do too much of a contrast. Maybe I will stay with those colors. We have options. Here's a portion of a map of Japan. I think I cut this out for when I was working on the Godzilla collage back in December. And that has some pink and purple going on. I want to make sure that I have enough so all my cutting won't be in vain, because there's going to be a lot of area that I will need to cover. There's some nice color going on here and a lot of detail. So maybe I will just go ahead and set this free and just put it off to the side. For now, this doesn't necessarily mean that I will use it. The map of Germany looks like it was before the Berlin Wall came down, because it's referencing like East Germany and West Germany. So I might want to use that. I have this off to the side. I love the swirl images of color going on, great contrast. Thought I wanted to use it. I don't think I'm going to, but it's inspiring me for whatever reason, and I'm going to keep it in my view so I can just gaze upon it as I do my work here. So there's actually, this atlas has worked well with me. So I think I'm going to go ahead and use this purple Canadian map, the purple boundaries. And I still have a little bit here, just a little bit. That can mean a lot in the end if I'm running out of, and then this portion here has some pink going on, which might be an interesting contrast. So question is, what would I like to do for the face? I thought about this colorful map. that might be interesting. I am going to search a little bit more, and I'm going to think in time lapse. Contrast is still going to be important even though I'm using a map to build this collage. And I especially want contrast between the delineation points so we can see the separation between, for example, here, the jawline and the neck. So what I'm trying to do here, if you can see, there is the latitude longitude lines, and that adds like a nice contrast. So when I work on this neck area here, when I'm searching for the ephemera, I can maybe go ahead and work with this map because it'll be a nice contrast. And the point is you would be able to see where the neck begins and the jawline begins. It just makes for a nice delineation. So, I have a space here. Okay, I have to adjust this just a little bit. So remove this drafting tape again. Actually, probably needed. Well, no, this was actually a fairly new piece of tape. But what I do here, in case you missed my other videos, or this is the first time that you're watching one of the videos, I take a piece of drafting tape and I just make sure I remove the tacky adhesive, just placing it upon a clean surface, so I can attach it and keep things in place temporarily with the drafting tape on my collage material. This is an old atlas, but it is fairly strong and fairly durable. So I can play with it a little bit here. Here we go. Now I got all my spaces covered. And I also have the name Montreal, which is fairly familiar. So here is my template. The eye and the eyebrow will cover up the word Montreal. So let me see if I can move it a little bit more and still keep that delineation point. Montreal still going to get covered. So that's something to think about, whether or not it's going to be that noticeable. A little bit. This isn't too bad because we have blue from the water on here. It might be kind of cool also, and also makes a good contrast. So right here we have the blue on the face, and then we have the hand here, so I can freely put some very white imagery for the map. It's not going to hurt anything. Montreal actually won't be covered too much if I do this here. I love to have cities and such that are visible and noticeable to most people when I work with maps, because it can strike up nostalgia. People have seen some of the collages I've done. I actually made a sale once based on a map because it was a Thomas guide, and it had the street of somebody, they recognized the street name that was prominent in the collage, and it was a street they grew up on, and they wanted to buy the collage. So if I have the opportunity to show street names and cities that may strike feeling up for people, I like to include it, not just to make the sale, but to create a connection also. So we have the map is ready to be taped down. I'm using tape for this collage. I'm not sure if I'm going to need to rely on my Mod Podge. And I want to tape the area where I'm not going to be doing too much cutting. So probably up around here, it should be fairly safe. And I'm just going to put one piece of tape on here. I can always go back and add more tape, but this is a really high quality packing tape I'm using. It's a Scotch shipping tape by 3M. No endorsement here, but I do like using this tape for collage. Very clean, very strong, and I've been really pleased working with it. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this drafting tape. At this time, my thinking is I'm going to keep the hair, her black hair on here as much as I can. Let's put this template back. I do not want to lose that. And I'm thinking about my next cut. There is the ear. Do I want to keep the ear? I may want to keep the ear. because we're going to have the eyes and we're going to have the hair. No other part of the body, as far as I can see, is going to be cut away or kept in. So let me go ahead and get back to cutting, and we're going to be thinking about the neck next. I'm just going to think out loud for a minute so you can understand the process that goes into making something like this for me. We have some spaces here that are dark, and I want that contrast in my next cut. I'm thinking about working on the hand, the arm area here, but I want to be cognizant of this negative space. I'm not going to trim it away. It's going to be very important for the next portion. So I want to keep it there. It might be a little tricky, so I'm going to cut this arm and the fingers out and keep that negative space and decide what I'm going to do with that next. So it's going to get a little tricky. It might get a little messy. Hopefully my packing tape holds up, and let's see what we can do with the ephemera, create that template, and play around with it. When working with a piece like this, contrast is going to be extremely important. I am leaning towards this busier portion of the purple map because it offers a contrast with these less busy portions, so we can delineate where the neck is and delineate where the face is going to go. And that blue is going to be very important. I'm going to need to really be kind of judicious with what I have here. I probably will end up using this more colorful map with the colored boundaries, and I'm going to look for a few more just in case. Oh, that's right, I have the map of Japan, which is kind of pinkish. Where did it go? Okay, but I have some options here, so I'm going to play around with it a little bit more to see what I can come up with what I have. That's kind of the goal here. I would love to stay with the same purple feel, but I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough. That's the rub. And that's usually what happens when I'm working with certain pieces of ephemera. I don't have enough of it to go around, and then I run into trouble and I have to come up with something that maybe I don't like as much or I wasn't planning. So I am going to return to this map book. Here we go. This was the Japanese portion. So I might be able to use this later. I don't know if I'm going to use it now. It's too busy, I think. So I'm going to stick with my original idea. Let's play around with it. The busy portion here. Let's hope that I have enough to finish. I use the drafting tape to keep pieces in place that I'm not ready to tape down yet, only because I don't want to have to cut through that packing tape more than I have to. And I also trimmed away a lot of the map before I began cutting. The reason for that is I want to save pieces, even if they're small, because I can see that I'm gonna run into ephemera troubles. I'm gonna run out of ephemera, and the piece will. I'm gonna get frustrated, and I don't want to get frustrated. I want to enjoy my collage experience. So everything should be taped down. I'm gonna add another little piece right up here, though this may get cut away when we have the finished product. So it's taped on. It's looking good. I'm going to remove this bit of drafting tape gently, and that's a nice contrast. I'm pleased with this. We can see the line here. This is looking good. But I'm going to need to think about these little dark areas here. So we need to think about the fingers. The other thing I was considering, since I'm a glutton for punishment, her fingernails on this hand. Do I want to add fingernails on? That's going to help delineate it even more. That's going to be one of the last things I do, I think. But I'm going to keep her arm over here in case I need a reference point for those fingers. I switched gears here just a little bit. I thought I was going to work on this arm next because I cut out the fingers, but then I saw the knee. And for some reason, I'm like, no, I'm going to do this first. And this is the part I love about working with these maps, with these atlases, because I love finding these little lines that mimic the biomorphic form of the human body. And I like how this pink and this blue is outlining what the knee is supposed to be. I got to think about this portion of the leg. Is the rest of this map going to work? I like where this is right now. So I'm thinking I should cut out the rest of this leg to see if the rest of the map will match it. It looks like it would. I'm just going to go ahead and remove my tape again and keep the portion I want to use off to the side and just cut out the rest of this leg and see if I like the way the other portion of the map looks with it. It looks pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and tape it and commit it. I want to keep some of this map for other parts of this collage. So I'm just going to kind of cut around and make sure I can save some of it. You know what? I can't really cut too much. Part of it was already cut away and now it's overlapping, so I'm not going to have too much of that colorful piece of map that I was working with earlier. There's some on this side, so I'm going to go ahead and cut what I can. Don't want to cut too much, and when I've done this, I cut too much and then I run out, or I injure the portion I was working on. I also am keeping the border here till the very end, because then I have a nice format to cut my collage out. So I like keeping the border till the very end, because then I use this to measure and to crop my collages. So that's going to stay here, so I don't cut that out. And also, I mentioned before, the shadow is going to be very important. I'm not going to worry about that too much right now. I think if I can maintain this good contrast, we should be successful, and I won't need to worry about adding any pieces of shadow. Although the shadow in the original photograph is absolutely phenomenal. So I'm just going to abandon it right now. If necessary, I will return to it and add on to it if I feel I need to. This is where it starts getting a little tricky in terms of contrast. I was playing with this pink and it was too much, too busy, because we have a busy knee and a leg here, and also these fingers are a little busy and I want them to stand out. Work too hard to cut them out to not have them stand out. So I actually found a rather plain map of the Winnipeg area of Canada. I apologize, especially to my Canadian audience, because I have not been to Canada except to British Columbia and Vancouver, so I haven't had an opportunity to go to the Midwestern portion or the East Coast. So my Canadian geography isn't very good, but it looks like Winnipeg. I see Lake Winnipeg, and that's going to be important to me when I apply this, because the fingers should stand out. And do I want that compass? I kind of like that compass. I'd like to include the compass, I think. And then there's a green boundary line. That might work because we have a little bit of green going on here. So I think we'll go for it. I think this'll be nice. I think it should be. We're going to go ahead and commit it. And I'm going to pull out another piece of tape. Yeah, this is, I don't like estimating that my collages aren't going to take very long and they're going to be real easy, because that's not the case. It's this kind of collage actually takes a good deal of time, and I don't mind because it's exactly how I want to spend my time. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a portion of this free before I tape it down and get back to work. So I'm coming to the finish line with this, but I want to point out that, so this was the area, the breast area, and I originally went with, something kind of plain, but now I think I want it to read a little more. So I'm going to remove this, and I want to put in something colorful for this area, because you can't even see the delineation of it. So I'm just going to work on that for a second. And I kind of wished I had completed this first, or made the decision on this first before I started working on the leg. But that's how it goes. I change gears constantly when I'm working on collage projects like this. Okay. So I think that'll be good. Okay. And I set off to the side some map that I think will work nicely in that space, I hope. Yeah, that looks pretty good. That's good. Yeah, that's not bad at all. Nice contrast. I'm going to trim this area because I want just the green to show, not this little beige area, but green where the line is for the leg. And maybe I'll stand out just a little bit more. But yeah, the white part was not working. Do some more trimming here. There we go. Try to trim that as much as possible. Trimming away at the back as I work. Okay. Yeah, I like the way that looks. I think that'll work nicely. Okay, that should work. And if it doesn't, oh well. We'll think about it later when we're working with the final image and putting it through its rigors in Photoshop and with backgrounds. We're just finishing up the last portions of this collage. This took a little longer than I anticipated, but that's how these types of collages work. They are a little tedious because you cut something away and then you realize you didn't want to cut that away, whatever the case may be, and you want to really maintain the template for this because it gets a lot tricky actually. So I'm going to cut away here. This looks pretty easy. I'm just going to cut her out now. I'm just going to cut away here. I think that's nice and clean. Except for this little bit of tape, but I'll cut that away. And that's just a craftsmanship issue. Probably wouldn't be noticeable to anyone unless I pointed it out. So there's some little frayed edges here that happened, and they happen. You can always come in and give them a cleaning, as it were. Go ahead and remove this drafting tape. I just kept it in place just in case things slipped away because that tends to happen. Find that edge, that end, and start cutting. I have to do it again. It's not staying put, the template. Just all the way across and through. Okay. I may need to go to the scissors here in a minute. Okay, no, it worked pretty well. So I'm going to continue with the X-Acto. I did switch the blade out, so we have a fairly clean, fresh blade that doesn't have any nicks or tape stuck to it. That's one thing I always have to be careful of, is that tape gets stuck on the edge of the blade, and I need to change the blade when that happens, or at least remove the tape as much as I can. Don't think I'm going to be needing these scraps for anything, but I'm not going to toss them just yet. I always wait till the absolute last minute before anything gets tossed. So my problem might be here is the head. I don't know if her head should stay. It feels like it should stay, so I'm going to go ahead and just cut away her hair. It's going to stay intact, I hope. It might fall away here in a second. I hope not. Let's see. I think I put enough. Yeah, it looks like it should be okay. Yeah, there is tape there. I'm going to go back to my X-Acto now. Find where my cut was and continue with that. Just removing the template now. It's also an opportunity to keep the cut clean up the cut, and get rid of any frayed edges. It's not a big deal, and even if I don't get rid of the frayed edges with this initial cutting, it's fine. I can always come back around and do it. Let's remove this bit of drafting tape and continue. I just pick up where I left off and I keep cutting. Picking up where I left off and I'm just cutting away at an edge, because sometimes when I have a real thin edge going on, that's when the fraying happens, and I hate the way that looks, because I work pretty hard on these types of collages, so it's frustrating if craftsmanship becomes an issue, and it's something I notice. If I notice, other people might notice too. Still want to maintain the template even at the very end here. I don't want to lose it yet. I need it still. Picking up where I left off, I think. Things move around too with these types of collages, but that's just how it is. Okay. this, oh, I'm wondering if this is going to stay now. This leg. It feels like it's taped down. Let me just put some drafting tape on there just to make sure. And I think that I'm just going to do a cut right here. This is gone. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do next, what I'd like to do next anyway. Okay. And looks like it's finished. This part of the collage is finished. And I probably am going to need to come in with some Mod Podge just under these areas that are loose to ensure they do not move. I'm not sure if I'm feeling the fingernails today. I'm a little worn out, so I may skip the fingernails or maybe come back later when you guys see the final result. You might see that she has fingernails. But yeah, something like this right here, I probably should put some glue just to make sure that it stays. Now, we still have her face. Well, you see, I'm going to need to glue down the eyes and the eyebrow. I'm glad I left the ear and the hair. I was going to do the ear with the map, but I'm kind of glad I didn't. So I'm going to just do some quick gluing, and I'll be right back. Needed to be a little bit more delineation right here, so we did a little painstaking cut of some green, and I'm going to apply it with glue, of course. Very, very messy. Let me just grab something here, and I'm just going to apply it to the boundary between the leg and the thigh here, just to give it a little bit more contrast and definition that it's a leg, and just it should help a little bit. I want to keep the curve of the calf, which is right there, and I think that's noticeable, so I'm going to cut it there. Okay, I like that a little bit better, a little bit more delineation, and her the one eye here on the left side of her face is a little kind of wonky. I'm not overly thrilled with it. It's just a little messy. I tried cutting around it to clean it up a little bit. I don't know if there's any more that I can do or need to do. It's just a little odd. Just trying to clean the edges. It has almost like an alien quality about it. Maybe that's fine. Yeah, I just wasn't thrilled with the way that happened to come out. But the rest of it's looking okay. I don't really have a problem with it. So here we have all these body parts and map parts, and I'm not going to use any of them for anything. Put them off to the side. It's long, messy work. So this is what my thinking was. I wanted to use, now she covers half of the piece. You can't even see the, maybe I was thinking something like that. It's, so it covers up that mountain. That kind of bugs me. So I'm not going to use this now. So now it's time to maybe search for, remember this at the beginning of the video? Yeah, doesn't really, I mean, it's, of course the colors are beautiful, but it doesn't really do anything for her. So, I'm walking across my room to my, here we go. So this was a new find. It was this book about Mont Blanc in France, right? believe it's France. Could be Quebec, but I don't think it is. I really loved these background images, and I used them in oh gosh, one of my last collages, and it's escaping me now. We've been at this channel for over 3 years now, and over 160 videos, and I'm very proud of that. However, I keep forgetting what I've done, what videos I've done, and even if it was like last week, maybe this? I don't know. This might be interesting, tucking her in this waterway. So I'm losing track of what videos, the names of my videos. And I think it was Head in the Clouds. Head in the Clouds. I stole the background from this book for Head in the Clouds. What am I doing something like that with this? I think these images are too small. She's a lot bigger than I thought she was going to be. And this is cool, but it's not enough contrast. Okay. I may need to sleep on this one. But the majority of the collage is finished. And actually, that doesn't look too bad, does it? But I don't want to use the back cover of the book. Okay, I think I'm going to give myself a little rest and figure out what I want to do next. No rush. I'm pleased with how this came out. And I'm not going to do any sort of cutting on the bottom here. But I do want the cropping to include this hand here. I may want to put another green stripe or something here to delineate the wrist from the knee. Or maybe a something purple. But I also want it to be kind of at a curve. We got something of a curve right here. Let's see if we can do that. Perhaps. So what I do is it's kind of a careful cut. But I am looking for a boundary line that is curvy. So I was thinking something like this. That might work. And what's nice is I can tuck it in here. I think there's space here so I can tuck it in and scoot it over. Yeah, that looks nice. I like that. I don't mind gluing it, but yeah, it's tucked it. Yeah, I can tuck it in. The problem is I do need to glue it down. Not a big deal, but I just didn't feel like gluing anymore today. That I like a lot. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and commit it to glue. And I'll come back later and decide where I want to put her. Sometimes the light of morning makes everything look different. This is the next day. I said I was going to put this to bed for a minute and see what I could come up with. I realized I needed more lines to delineate what I wanted to do, and I feel like it works well. I had that within the image where the map itself that I cut out already had like this green boundary line, and I realized I could cut out other boundary lines and just put them where they needed to be. This was somewhat serendipitous. It doesn't belong to either one of these maps, but I found something that was nice and curvy, biomorphic, like the human body, placed it there, and I feel much better about the presentation and that it looks like a human body. So very pleased with that. Didn't take me too long, and it's actually given me ideas for other collages. Not today though, but I love these little lines, and what can I make up of these little lines? Well, I thought I was going to toss this atlas after this project, but I'm going to hang on to it now. So the collage itself is finished. Just needs some cleanup in uh, it needs cleanup in Photoshop. So I'm going to scan it. May want to try to darken this hair in Photoshop again. But my analog portion of the collage is finished. Pleased with the way it looked. It was a bit harder than I thought it was going to be, and that's fine because I want to challenge myself with collage as we go along. And now it's time to give it a scan and see what we come up with for a background. I hope you enjoyed this episode and hope to see you next time.